as you all know, Hong Kong is literally on the other side of the world, 12 time zones away. So right now it is almost 11 BC. They do not have daylight saving anymore. So do not judge a man until you have walked 2 moons in his moccasins. This is a purported Native American proverb. However, the only concrete source documentation I could find for it is on the flak jacket of the Sharon Creech 1994 young adult fiction, Walk 2 Moons, which won the 1995 Newbery Medal. According to Creech, she found this quotation in a fortune cookie. Fortune cookies are very much an American invention. The cookie itself came from Japan. Chinese Americans took over the production in World War II when Executive Order 9066 relocated American citizens of Japanese ancestry and resident aliens from Japan from the West Coast to internment camps. Presumably, Chinese Americans were inspired by their own historical legend of putting a message in the mooncake to come up with the fortune cookie as we now know it. So whether it is Native American or from a fortune cookie, this walk 2 moons in his moccasins quote is American. Putting yourself in someone else's shoes is the basic principle of understanding and sympathy. It is likewise for equitable race relationship. Good morning, I'm Alan Cheng. I was born and raised in Hong Kong. After high school, I came here as a foreign student. I am serving on the Christchurch Summit Race Equity Task Force. May is the Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. That's the reason why you see me up here today. Asia and Pacific is a vast area with 2/3 of the world population. I'm sticking to what I know. Confucius was a Chinese sage from 6th to 5th century BC. There are 5 countries that are influenced by Confucianism. From the north, Japan, Korea, China, Vietnam, and Singapore. Each has its own unique language. At one point, all 5 used the Chinese characters as their written script. Think ABC, the Latin alphabet, used not just in Italian, but also in English, in French, in German, and even in Turkish. Japan and Singapore still do. Korea and Vietnam are advocating to learn the Chinese characters again, because without it, they would not be able to even read their own historical writings. Of course, Chinese itself is using it. Egyptian hieroglyphics and Chinese were 2 ancient languages from the same era. It is conjectured that the hieroglyphics was imported into Egypt because it had only appeared in full flower form. On the other hand, you can trace every step of the evolution of Chinese character, apparently homegrown. Chinese characters began as carvings on oracle bones and turtle shells. There are 6 methods to form a Chinese character. Please join us in the second hour for an etymological journey. Hopefully, you get a better glimpse of the Chinese mindset and culture from the way we develop our written script. You were again, as in see you in a bit. This part of the presentation is no more than 10 minutes, but then I'll open up to Q&A, so this way you have a time reference. As we had talked about Chinese culture, I would like to tie it together with Christianity now. So let's start with the most, on Chinese script, let's start with the most confusion word in the whole Chinese language. This is the modern Chinese script. Ren, R-E-N in Mandarin, and Yang, Y-A-N in Cantonese. Scholars consider Cantonese, the southern dialect, closest to the authentic original Chinese sounds. Then Mandarin, the northern dialect, now the official language. Now, if I ask you to summarize Christianity in a few words, most would come up with faith, hope, and love, and ultimately, just love. Ren is that one word for Confucianism. It stands for such a unique concept that it defies a simple single word translation in any language. This is the oldest script of the character man or person. It depicts a person humble in profile. So this is the first method to form a Chinese character, a pictogram. On the left, that's the modern Chinese script for man or person. When it is part of a character, man or person. One, two, three. This is the second method to form a Chinese character, the indicator. When we combine you got, right? Now, this is the third method to form a Chinese character. The ideal, because it gives you an idea. Now, I want you to hold that thought. We'll come back to this later. This is the oldest script for the Chinese character sun. This is the oldest script for the Chinese character moon. This is the modern version of sun This is the current character from Run. When you combine the two of them, you probably all know this word already. As in Ming, as in Ming Dynasty, which means bright, sun and moon together, right? So this is an ideogram. Aha. Remember I said Run is an ideogram. I also said that there's no simple single word translation in any other language. So let's see how the Chinese themselves define it. According to most authoritative dictionary from Han Dynasty of 2nd century AD, it says Ren is love. Therefore, it signifies by two persons. Two persons. It also said this is a dimension of love requiring two persons like neighbors. I'm quite sure you have all heard this before. Some unique Chinese concept, huh? Let's go to the other extreme. A Chinese word that has a ready, straightforward translation in every language. The left stroke represents a rod. The trident light on the right is the older script of the character hand, a pictogram. So in other words, a hand holding a rod. So this is an ideogram. Any guess what this character is?
Moses.
Well, not Chinese character. Not yet. I'll get to Moses later. If you want to know from the Bible in Chinese. Okay? Anybody knows Chinese? This is the modern Chinese script for fathers. Okay? So it seems only logical to deduce the Chinese notion of the main parental function is to discipline. Here are two lines from the 3-character canon. One of the 3 or 4 books spoon-fed to Chinese children of earlier generations. When they commit to memorization, they actually achieve a functional adult literacy vocabulary. So instead of ABC, think of this as the combination of the multiplication table and your SAT English flashcards. Now I'm going to read it to you in Cantonese just to give you a feel of it. 養不教，父之過；教不嚴，師之惰. Sound just like rap in Chinese. In English. Provide, not discipline. Fathers or parents, fault. Discipline, not stern. Teachers, neglect.
What?
Teachers, neglect. Or laziness. Since I'm at it, I might as well mention the Chinese notion that American English speakers are already familiar with. Kowtow. Kowtow. Okay? Cow is touching your forehead or forehead, the way I was brought to pronounce it, to the ground. Tao is your head. The ultimate supplication requires one to kneel and kowtow 3 times. Then get up and do it again and again. A total of 3 kneelings and 9 kowtows. Only 3 categories of people are accorded such high honor. The emperor, there are no emperors anymore. Your parents, and who else? Anyone? Right on. Your teachers. I started you off with an American truism, walk 2 moons. Then I took you to East Asia, then China, with a side trip to Egypt. And it's time to bring you home back to Christchurch Summit. Proverbs, chapter 13, verse 24. He who spares the rod hates his son, but he who loves him is careful to discipline. The Gospel according to Matthew, chapter 22, verses 37 to 40. Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbors as thyself. On these 2 commandments and all the law and prophets. Amen.
Thank you.
Welcome. Any questions? You want to know about Moses?
So the meaning of the translation of the first 2 lines is essentially the idea that discipline is an important component of the parental duty
The
to
main,
their children.
well, I mean, considering how the word is formed, I mean, why did they, of all things, somebody has to choose the original character. Then it evolves into Chinese, into modern script. But the original idea, back then, I'm talking about 5,000, 6,000 years ago,
Right.
is already formed that the main parental function is the discipline. That's the Chinese way of thinking. I mean, I'm trying to give you the
Right.
Chinese mindset. I mean, it's not right or wrong,
But
it's just
so
cultural.
as the children are learning characters, unlike the way we learn English, the children are also absorbing the cultural concept
Well,
that formed the characters.
Correct. Well, this part is really more modern, that we actually go back to the etymology, okay? I mean, the kids will just learn this. I mean, they're lucky they even learn this, okay? I mean, we don't really get into this until you started with linguistics. There's so much, I mean, yes, we kind of know, but we don't really know. Nothing is written. So you can have other conjecture of how the word is formed, okay? I'm only give you the first 3 methods. There are more complicated ones, but if you like, I can go further. I can, by the way, Moses actually was not Hebrew. You knew that. Most likely is hieroglyphic, Egyptian, because he was named by the Pharaoh's daughter. And where did that word come from? Egyptian. And really is very simple. Well, once a Sunday school teacher, always a Sunday school teacher. This is a hieroglyphic cartouche, which literally means bullet in French. This is the hieroglyphic for a very famous pharaoh. This is the sun, Ra.
Ramses.
Ramses. Well, it's wrong pronunciation. It's English. It's American English. It's actually Ramosis.
No way.
Okay? What does it mean? Well, don't forget that even though they explain it in Hebrew in the Bible, don't forget that the Egyptian language is Hamitic, one of the three sons of Noah, and the Hebrew is Semitic, another son of Noah. Okay? So their language is very, very compatible and related. This literally means deliver. So this means deliver from the sun god. That's why he's the Pharaoh. Okay? You won't see this in Moses because he's not the Pharaoh. This only applies to pharaohs, the cartouche. So if you just take these two, that's Moses right there. Okay, so it's very, very related. In fact, the person that deciphered the hieroglyphics, Jean-François Champollion, a Frenchman, he actually was able to do this after he was informed by how Chinese characters were formed by a French compatriot, a sinologist, who taught him how the fourth method of Chinese is formed. Because there are only 700 symbols in hieroglyphics. So how do you form a language with 700 symbols, whereas every single Chinese word is different? So if Chinese uses that method, so apparently hieroglyphic used that method also. He was inspired by it, and that's how he came up with deciphering the Rosetta Stone. So it's quite related, and by the way that you already saw kowtow, so your common English word. I mean, there is a Chinese word that we use every day. And there's also an Egyptian word that you see everywhere, in every single town in the US. Anybody guess where that is? What that is? A word that you cannot pronounce, or symbol. Okay, you know what that is, right?
Yeah.
That's Eye of Horus. Eye of Horus. This is 1/2. This is 1/4. This is 1/16. No, 1/8. This is 1/16. This is 1/32. This is 1/64. So together you have almost 1. and that's iron horse. That's the reason why you have. That's potions. That's your prescription. There's no Latin, Greek. You know, see, the Greek look up to the Egyptians, the Latins, the Romans look up to the Greeks. This is where we got this word from. You know, I'm a dentist, so I have to be. Yes.
Alan, I wanted to back up to the discipline
Okay.
page
Yeah.
and ask you, in Chinese, traditional Chinese philosophy, what is the ideal method for the parent to impose discipline? Is it physical punishment? Is it
Well,
making
obviously,
the child feel guilty?
obviously, this is physical. Okay, I mean, but you have to symbolize it. Now, how physical you are, I don't know. My parents are quite lenient, so I can say, you know, we're not that traditional. Even though when Pastor, you know, Reverend Chuck said that I brought a traditional household, not, you know, very liberal. My grandfather was a Christian with the father of modern China. He was baptized at the same time around turn of last century. So we quite liberal, not well. But there's a certain, you know, respect. I mean, even today, I actually have a high school teacher here in New Jersey. My high school teacher. Now, I just went home last year for my 50th high school reunion. So I'm 68 yesterday. So I actually have a living high school teacher who is in the next town from Hong Kong. And she was less than 10 years older than me because she graduated from college and she taught us the first year. But even to this day, I would never ever dare to say her first name in front of her. She is always Mrs. Lau. Okay, so that is ingrained. It's not really, I mean, just like the Bible, how tough are they? Do they beat the kids?
No.
I mean, that, I just quoted you that. You know, spare the rod, spoil the child is actually a conflation of two Bible verses. I gave you one of them. But, I mean, are they mean? Not necessarily. Yes?
We were having a conversation last weekend with my older son, who's a confirmand this month, and the rod and thy staff, they comfort me, is part of the psalm, and we were going through.
Oh, no, that's different. A staff is different from a rod.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So I had to look up what rod was and what staff was, because the kids were asking me.
Well, I have
So
looked
is
it
that-
up.
is that different?
I really should look it up, the Hebrew part of it.
Yeah,
The rod is much, staff is,
right,
you know.
okay.
Well, staff is more, think of staff is more support, as in staff of life, bread,
Right,
okay? It's more support. I mean, the symbol is different. Rod is really more for discipline, more for defense.
right.
Yes?
Maybe a rod would be used too by a shepherd to guide.
Yes.
Maybe not to hit, but
Exactly.
to
Yeah,
guide.
right.
But I was
Exactly.
thinking of the comfort part, you know, and saying the kids, they need that
Well,
sort of limits and that sort of
Yeah.
thing, and just knowing that someone is there to guide them, like you said.
Well, I mean, you know, I just learned recently that, you know, there are two kind of modern sports in France. They have a rod that they almost like fence, and they also have a staff. Same, you know, they actually do combat with it. But, you know, the rod is really for bourgeois, and the staff is really for aristocrats. Yes?
There's two translations of Chinese. Why is it different? Is it different?
two translations?
Well,
I mean, no.
There's two different
Script.
scripts, yeah.
Okay. Well,
Does it sound differently? They speak differently?
well, about as American English and British English, like I said,
Oh,
forehead,
like that, okay.
forehead and forehead, would be hit with a rod had I pronounced it forehead when I was
Yeah,
growing
right,
up.
okay.
Okay,
You said
it evolves, and even though we can read each other's script, it's not quite the same. Now, good thing is I have to be careful when I make the comment earlier when I said 幼儿见, okay, that's traditional Chinese. That's old-fashioned traditional Chinese. The modern abbreviated version from mainland China would be 幼儿见, much more abrupt. And of course, I gave you the most authentic version. I'm Cantonese, okay? I gave you the most authentic Chinese sound. After I said that, I said 一陣見. That's Cantonese. That's usually not written, but it's colloquial.
Yeah.
But that's more authentic.